Welcome to another episode of Critical Moves. This is your host, Timothy, for today, and we have here with us Adam.
Hi, everyone.
And Jack.
Hello, hello.
And today we will be covering the Steam NextFest that is happening at this very moment. Alright, guys, let's start off very simple, very easy, and very short first impression of the games at Steam Fest right now. What do you guys think?
I've seen lots of idle games, lots of auto battlers, and I don't know, 1/10 of the rest were interesting ones.
Well, maybe it's because of the way Steam NextFest works, where they just kind of push everything at you, but I felt like, and I know this makes up a bulk of the indie games on Steam, but I felt like a lot of the strategy games this time were like roguelike strategy games or puzzle strategy games. Some of them were like JRPG narrative strategy games for Adam. I didn't see a whole lot of big names, but I also avoided our chat where we kind of showed off the ones we've been looking forward to.
About the same impression as me, I have to say. A lot of low effort games, I would say, but that's also sometimes just developers their first steps into game developing, or they're trying to build up their project over time and so on. So I don't want to be too harsh on that either. I did play a few fun games. I did have fun, and there are a few games that I have been curious about. You guys, any games that have piqued your immediate interest that you thought, oh, this is something I want to see more of?
The first game I ended up downloading, I had a misinformed opinion on. It was like I think it's called Serendipalette. I thought it was like this really beautiful looking hand-drawn city builder, and it was actually like a city puzzle game. You didn't really build anything. You just placed down a tile, like a hexagonal tile that was one color from like a color palette, and then it automatically built either a forest or a city or a pond. Then you could mix colors, but it wasn't very in-depth. And anyways, that was my first impression. But as far as games I was kind of looking forward to and was like happy to see there was Atre Dominance Wars, the one that we spoke about in a previous episode and had just done its crowdfunding campaign. It's very much like Spellforce or Heroes of Might and Magic. It is exactly one of those games, and it came from an existing studio that had already done a game or two in the strategy game sphere. I was really looking forward to that. So it was one I also immediately had on my download list.
To me, since I'm a huge board game fan, I immediately downloaded Twilight Imperium because this is a huge game in terms of board gaming, and I wondered what the digital version of it looked like. And the rest, I will talk later about it. But basically, I scrolled through the games and picked the ones I thought seems fine or something like that. And
I have a question for Twilight Imperium. Is it like the board game exactly copied into a digital version, or is it a little bit adapted?
so you see, this is interesting because I downloaded the demo. I was like, okay, Twilight Imperium is a big game. I need at least, I don't know, 1-2 hours to play it. And to care that the demo is like only one mechanic of the game, that is fleet fighting, and it's like a simulator of this mechanic, and that's it.
Okay.
So for people who didn't play this game, Twilight Imperium is a huge 4X board game, and in the perspective, what they've created digital version of and put in this demo is like getting, like in terms of driving a car, it's like getting into the car, and that's it. You don't know nothing. I don't even know why they did it. Probably they had some deal that they had to push the demo out or something like that. I don't know, but I was disappointed because of the lack of content.
It can build up some hype, though, I guess, which is maybe what they were trying to do. And I am interested as well. I played the board game a lot. I think at some point we might have an episode about strategy board games. It does feel like a big 4X game or grand strategy game in the making. I would like them to be a little bit more digital, not create just a copy of the board game, because I think a lot of the mechanics could use some polishing. But no, interested to see where that's going.
Always in the terms of board games that are going digital, I say that they are split into two types, and one type is directly transition from board games to video games, and the other one is making the gameplay smoother, maybe adding some interesting challenges and things like that. And to be honest, from this demo, I couldn't figure out anything except for the multiplayer. It will be implemented, but that's it.
Yeah, so I played quite a few games. I have to say I was not enthusiastic about any of them afterwards. So I think some of them could turn into something fun, but as of now, nothing really caught my eye too much, unfortunately. Some of them felt very simple, but again, that's a demo, right? You're entering the car, they're just showing something, maybe the art style and so on, maybe the feeling, the vibe of the game. Yeah.
Man, you should at least be able to drive around parking lot in the car. At least.
Yeah, so Atre or Atre, I still don't know how to pronounce that. I haven't heard them pronounce it in their community updates or devlogs or anything. Yeah, I was looking forward to it ever since I brought it up in the Games of 2026 episode, where we talked about upcoming strategy games we were interested in. It piqued my interest because of the crowdfunding campaign. It piqued my interest because it was Iron Ward, and even though I hadn't played their other games, I just liked the fact that they had a portfolio. As someone who had just gotten into Heroes last year and played that demo on Steam NextFest, and as someone who actually got Spellforce at Adam's suggestion and didn't put a whole lot of time into it, but I can still say that both of those games did something that this demo did not do. And if you take Heroes of Might and Magic or Spellforce and you remove the immediate hook, which is in Spellforce like that central castle where you're building rooms or doing alchemy, or in the case of Heroes, especially this Olden Era demo that we played at Steam NextFest, building a city with mechanics that are like aesthetically pleasing. This demo didn't have that hook. There's like 2 demo missions that you do initially, and I think they also included like PvP multiplayer that you could play against AI. And at no point did the tutorial change over where it started saying build a city. At no point did it become a city builder. At no point were you investing your resources. In fact, at no point in the 2 tutorial missions did you go and collect any resources like wood or other items from something like Heroes or Spellforce from nearby areas to contribute to something like that. In fact, what you would go to are mana pools that would it would give you more mana to spend on spells for combat. And you could go to places and it would give you one of like 7 different resources that are specific to just your leadership skills. Like it spends a resource as you utilize your armies in the same turn-based combat system that Spellforce and Heroes have. And all the resource, like everything you did in the world was representative of just having your next battle. It was like Heroes where you only got to do the battles. And there were villages and there were cities, but there was no functionality there in the demos. It was just you go there to progress the story of the tutorial missions. And so I can appreciate it's a tutorial mission. I can appreciate that it's a demo. But it reminds me a lot of like the Menace episode we did, right, Tim? Sorry, was that Adam? Okay.
What episode? Which game?
The Menace episode where we played the Menace demo coming up on its early access release recently with Al.
Okay, I remember. Okay. Yeah. When we recorded this episode, I got the impression that you were interested in the game after playing the demo, that it hooked you at some point.
Yeah, what reminds me of it is the fact that for Menace, the reason I was so harsh, even though I really enjoyed that demo and was hooked, was because we had a date coming up at the end of that week when we played the demo where we knew it was going to come out into early access. Like, it was not going to be fully released, but they were still going to be charging money, and they were putting they were giving people the product, right? And so we're saying, we're playing a demo, there's no hook. Even though it is a lot of fun, we don't get to experience the RPG parts, we don't get to experience the shipbuilding parts that people are raving about now that the game is out. And so it's like, where's the incentive to play this demo and want to, want to buy the full game? So my problem with Atre is basically that they didn't give you that hook in this demo, and while they haven't announced the release date, so I'm not as harsh yet, they just ran a crowdfunding campaign where they gave people a window for the release date. And then they've done the demo now to advertise the game even further beyond the crowdfunding campaign, now that it's closed. And the game is coming out in Q2 2026, so within the next 2 or 3 months. And this game doesn't have a hook at a Steam NextFest demo where it's like, here's how to build a city. Because that's the impression I got from the crowdfunding campaign. It looked like a very beautiful looking... It was like for people who didn't want to play Heroes olden era because it looked like a mobile game. This game looked like a PC game. It looked modern. It was supposed to have a bunch of voice acting. It was supposed to have a bunch of combat mechanics. It just looked really cool. But there's no hook. So I didn't get an incentive. And the sound effects, that's the one thing if I was going to rant for an additional second here. Some of the sound effects and animations really needed some work, especially whenever they would introduce new units to the battlefield that you hadn't encountered before. Their sound was just wildly louder than anything else to the point that it hurt my ears. And that would happen for a few different enemy types.
Yeah, that's something that I have to say. Every single game that I played had lackluster sound and music. And I do think part of that is that that's probably one of the last things you really polish. And it can often be the last priority in a lot of these games. But it probably does do a huge thing. And I think a game with really good sound or really good music really lets you immerse into the game so much more. And I noticed how much it was lacking in the demos, which, I mean, I'm not going to fully judge until the games are released, I suppose. But now playing the demo with some of these games, I might just not be interested at all because the atmosphere was not there.
You see, when I played the demos of all these games, I could get by not having a music, but for me, sound effects are like a silent. I would say they're like a silent hero of each of this game. If they are not there, for me, it's really hard to focus on the game. Like I hate when I click the button and I don't hear a response. I don't know why it's there. Maybe I'm old and I like to have this tactile feel when I play something. But I remember there was a game I don't know, a couple of weeks ago called Age of Reckoning, and I bought it in early access. And in the beginning, it didn't have any sound effect. So when the units fight, you couldn't hear the sword clinging. And for me, I had to stop playing this game. And I know that lots of the developers are like omitting it because they feel it should be left for the later part of development. But for me, it's so important to the experience to feel this click. Like Paradox does it really well, really well.
Yeah, but imagine you make all the sound effects and then you change the game and then you need new sound effects and then you need to go to the studio again or whichever way they're making. So, no, it does make sense to make it at the last very minute. And a demo is a demo and it's nothing more than a demo. So I do get that, but I do notice it as well that it's missing.
And you, Jack, am I right that you are specialized in music, in video game music and sound effects?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So maybe tell me, because I believe that, okay, I agree with Tim about music, but what about sound effects? I feel they're being bought in packages.
I don't know that that's the case. I mean, it's absolutely possible. When it comes to something like game development, it's so do-it-yourself that there are people who are making their music for their demos and there are people that are making their sound effects for their demos. There's nothing wrong with that. And if they decide to use a free sound pack, that's fine, so long as they do it well. Same with the music. I mean, everybody has that power. It's just, I would agree with Tim where I try not to be overly critical or anything, but there was absolutely times where I was playing these demos and I was personally thinking, I'm always going to think something like, well, I wouldn't have taken that direction with the music because that's me and it's my job to think about those things for different games. But there would be times where I'd be playing a game and I'm like, this music is pleasant, but also it's kind of overbearing for the game that I'm playing, or it doesn't fit what I'm doing, or these sound effects are going on for a long time. Or in the case of like Atre, the fact that they had crowdfunding and they promised voice acting to some capacity, it was jarring to me a little bit differently than other games that like the narration was voice acted and then the character you played in the tutorial was voice acted, but then nobody else in the game was voice acted, which is okay. and then the sound effects were really loud. That wasn't okay. And then I didn't really think, and then for combat, that was another thing. I was going to say I don't remember the music. I do remember one thing about the music, which is that I can't remember the music for when you were exploring. But the moment you entered combat, I think they just turned the music off. So it was this jarring experience where after like the first or second time of getting into the combat, imagine Heroes combat, but like if you just take the exploration music of you doing something, and then the moment you get into combat and have turn-based stuff, you just don't hear anything. And all you hear is these loud sound effects. And then you're just kind of like, where's the, like, at least in Heroes Olden Era, when you go to attack a city or you're doing like a siege, it's like giving you some stuff to get you pumped and get into it and like want to break down these walls that take forever to destroy in Olden Era. And so it's like, I don't know. I don't know where that was. There's plenty of demos like that though, where I'm like, this music doesn't really fit, or like these sound effects go on for a very long time. So
I played a game that at first intrigued me called Solar Wave, and it markets itself as like a space expansion game, but an idle one where you don't have to micromanage your fleets. So basically, you go from solar system to conquer it, and you build out mining facilities, you build out settlements, you colonize, and so on. And there's a tech tree, because of course there is, and you don't have to micromanage your fleets. In fact, you don't manage your fleets at all. It all happens automatically. Yeah, I like that sort of setting. I like the idea behind it. I don't know how far they're going to take it, or how much they're going to add, what they're going to change. As of this moment, it did get quite dull quite quickly. A lack of strategic depth, I would say, and it became tedious. It sounds a bit harsh, but that's how I felt, and I feel like it's not going in the right direction as of the demo. I would want to be a lot more given more options, more without layers of extra features and complexity in that way, but simply more entertaining from, what am I going to do now? I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Yeah, that sort of thinking.
You see, I wonder if you are a target for this. Like, have you played idle games before?
A little bit, yeah, but this didn't. There was something missing in this game.
Okay. Like, I get it. Like, when you play these demos, sometimes you, like, from the first menu, you feel this is it, and sometimes you simply don't get it. Like, what happened here?
They might also still be changing, and they might still put the demo out to get feedback and so on. But yeah, as is, it was not a fun game actually. There was not much game to it.
I have a friend who is a huge fan of idle games, and I tried all of them, and I don't understand this genre. So
I also played Battlestar Galactica. I was a fan of the TV show. I thought the TV show was really fun. So the setting is cool. I think it's especially the beginning of the story. It's kind of like this grandiose, epic story of like human survival against its own creation. It's like a very classical and very cool story. The visuals were well done, and the atmosphere that it created was okay. It was a bit too much dialogue and a bit too much pop-ups for the tutorial and so on, which we just covered in the other episode that we don't like so much. But the gameplay itself, yeah, it's a bit of a tower defense game where there's like waves of enemies and you have to survive long enough and you have to choose about which of your units attack which units and so on. Yeah, again, maybe I'm not the target audience. I find that a little bit simple, and I didn't get engaged enough to be curious about playing it more. I wouldn't buy this game, I guess, if it came out. But the atmosphere was well done. The graphics were well done. There was something more to it. I would see more if more came out, but maybe not buy it.
So maybe I'll go with a good game, for me at least. I would say the best one. maybe the best out of 2 games I played this Steam NextFest. So first one is Irezumi Defenders. It plays as a mixture of tower defense and RTS because you move your cards, but at some point you realize that cards are basically units that can be attacked, and there are other cards who are going to your cards and destroying your cards. It looks really well. I was really grasped by the gameplay. I played through whole the demo. I wishlisted like at the moment I finished it. It looks beautiful. Probably it won't be the best game in the world, but I really, really liked it. It had this really clever idea about what they wanted to take from like this card games. So for example, I don't know if you played Magic the Gathering, and there are boosters. And this game you also get boosters. And from boosters you get cards that you then use at your base. So really fun game. Maybe not a really interesting game to play. I don't know if it will be good in the future, but I like it, and for sure I will buy it. And the second game I want to talk about that was also good for me was Demiurgos. And this is a god game and kind of the 4X game at the same time. And basically you play as a god. You need to spread your religion through whole the continent. And what I really liked about this game is that this is one of the, like, I don't recall a good god game in quite a while, to be honest. And this one I needed to stop playing for us to record this episode, so it says something. This concept that basically your tech tree is like the different ideas from different religions that you can develop. So for example, you can add to your faction this in some religion, children are being marked when they are born. They're being marked like in some African religion, and here it's a feature in a tech tree that every child is marked at their birth, and it's much harder for this child to change the religion in the future.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you build the IDs, and then you see the outcome of what happens on the people. That is interesting, and I like the concept. Is it single player, multiplayer? Do you know?
I guess it will be multiplayer. For now, there's only single player skirmish. Of course, it's also a god game, so you have your powers. Yes, you play as a Poseidon in the demo, so you get some powers for your Poseidonish people.
But it was a skirmish, so it was not like a story mode or something like that. You're set up against other gods.
I often say that during the Steam NextFest, all the demos are half-baked or feel like the alpha. And this game, for me, it feels at least like a beta. The UI is really well designed. It has this paradox idea of hovering over things. Okay, it lacks the tutorial, but on the other hand, you feel that all the mechanics are there. I really feel that this demo is one of the best I played for quite a while because it was so well developed, and I can feel the game being released in like, I don't know, a couple of months.
2 other games I played. One, I think people might have their attention caught by on Steam NextFest. It's called City States Medieval. I'm not sure if both of you saw that game. It looked immediately to me like it just looked like a grand strategy map. And so it looked interesting. It had like 3D character models, 3D cities. I'll be honest, I almost shouldn't even mention the game. I ended up closing it before I progressed in it at all, just because the impression I got from it, and then the moment I loaded in, it looked like I was signing myself up for another Empire at War, where it even had it looked like it came out the same year as Empire at War, which shouldn't really count against it. And I understand, graphics are tough, development is difficult, but then also the moment I saw the UI for actually improving the city, I was just kind of out. I think that game is probably complex and probably has a lot to offer, but I would 100% recommend that they just take some time and work on the UI, especially if they're going to try to get me hooked into playing a game like another Empire at War that comes out in 2026. So that's just what I would have to point out first and foremost about that game. And another game that I saw was Spaceslog, and I don't know if that one was shared or if any of you two played that game, but it was basically like I don't want to say a prison architect, but it was very much a. It was like FTL, but you start off. It's like the opening of The Expanse is what immediately got me. Was I didn't expect that. It was you had to choose you had to choose 3 out of like 6 or 8 pre-generated characters that it would make a seed from each time, and then it would randomly generate a world of like a seed for the save file, and you had to choose 3 of them, and they would start off in an escape pod where they were running out of oxygen, and their communications they had no way to communicate outside of their transponder, and then you had to start directing your 3 little sims to go around and improve the ship and then slowly build it up until you are playing a strategy game where you're managing the construction of your ship, and you could build furniture and all kinds of technology. The thing is that the game, I'm not going to say that it's overly difficult, but it's one of those games where you don't get to directly tell the sims what to do. You have to motivate them by making something. It's almost like a god game in the sense that instead of actually telling them what to do, you're just you're marking resources as accessible so that they know they can access it, and then giving them the idea of building blueprints in the ship or expanding it so that they will do it on their own time. But even on 3 times speed, you were sitting there for minutes at a time waiting for them to wake up when they would go to sleep randomly. And so when all 3 of them decided to go to sleep, I had it on 3 times speed, and I'm sitting there watching them sleep while nothing is progressing in the game. And I'm sure it gets better as time goes on and you have a bunch of different sims that can have different odd hours of sleeping. But I also didn't get an impression of what time it actually was that they were going to be going to sleep, because it's also set in space. You just met these sims. I don't know what their sleep schedule is or how I'm supposed to define what part of the clock they're going to sleep at. They don't tell you those things. And also the game just did not give a whole lot of directions in general. So there would be times where for the first 10 minutes I was playing the game, I was trying to get them to grab resources, and I didn't understand initially in the game where they get the resources from. Maybe I skipped a tutorial window. It wasn't until after minutes of clicking through menus, telling them to build things, asking them to pick up the coins on the ground when they said they don't have any storage to pick anything up. And so I'm like, okay, I don't have any resources to build any storage to be able to haul anything or pick up or clean up the floor or anything like that. I can't build anything because I don't have any resources. I can't collect resources because I don't have storage. I don't know what to do. Well, I backed up with my mouse wheel, and I found out that outside of the spaceship, just outside of the actual screen that you can see at that time, there's asteroids that you can tell them to go mine to get resources. And they actually go and grab those resources instead of like the ones in the ship. And then I did that, and I felt like a genius, and I'm like, okay, finally, I can progress this game. And then I would watch them break the asteroid, and then they would come back to the ship, and then I would tell them to build something with the materials that I saw the asteroid dropping, and then the thing wouldn't get built. And I'm like, well, what do I do to encourage them to put the resources from the asteroid into this machine? And then I would look back at the asteroid, and they left the resources there. They just never picked up the stuff from the asteroid. And so it wasn't until a few minutes later I finally got them to go and grab the titanium from the asteroid and then bring it back and then build all that work for them to build a life support module. And then I find out the life support module needs to be wired to a vent in the floor, so I have to build the ducting in the floor and the vent, but I can't get that to work because you can't place the vent on the same tile as the duct, so I don't know how to connect them, and the game doesn't explain that part. And so I basically the thing about it was I thought the game could absolutely be very fun in the future, and I saw the potential in it, even if I wasn't absolutely crazy about the aesthetic. I think that with a little bit more work there, and as long as I put some more time into it, I think it could be so fun. I think it could be another RimWorld where the entire focus is just on expanding your ship. But what it really made me want to do is, for the first time in years, it made me want to re-download FTL and play that, because I barely remember anything about FTL outside of the core gameplay loop. And I'm over here thinking I just didn't play enough FTL because I know I didn't play enough FTL. And it made me want to go back and play that. And so that's not a great thing for a demo. And so it's just, I really do think if people checked out that game when it comes out, I hope that if they give it some time, I'm sure it would actually be a lot of fun, because I see the potential, especially with a wide array of things to build and being able to expand your ship. And the escape pod premise, I think, would connect you with your little crew of 3 in an escape pod who managed to survive the first 14 days like that. I think that would probably be so much fun. There was harder difficulties than that too. And I was like, well, okay.
If a game is created in such a way that encourages you to play the other game, Maybe that's something wrong.
I played a game that had a similar frustration as you, as one of the things that you mentioned, a game called Townsfolk. And it's like a city builder, I guess, in a way. It's basically like Civilization 6, where you try to build combos by building districts, but you're only doing the districts. It did feel a bit like a browser game because of how simple it was. I felt like that this game maybe came out 20 years ago on Newsground as a browser game. The aesthetics were nice. It was like your typical, you try to create combos by building certain tiles next to others, but not to the bad ones. And there's a bunch of different resources like humans and food and work and faith and money. And yeah, you try to scale up and you unlock some tech that allows you to upgrade, and you build some houses so you have more people, but that consumes food, so you need farms, but then for the farms you need this, and it keeps going like that. And yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was okay. Very casual fun. Not huge or anything, but yeah, it was okay. It was okay. The big game that I played was Ashes of Singularity 2.
Oh,
Yeah. When I was playing that, I was thinking, why am I not playing Beyond All Reason instead? It had, I mean, this is a big game, right? And there's a lot of development going into that. But it still has like some of these really old-fashioned design ideas, such as, oh, you can make a bunch of infantry, or you can make a bunch of tanks, and the tanks, there's tanks that are good against infantry, and there's tanks that are good against other tanks, and then you also have aircraft, and those are the units. That's what you can make. And I feel like, well, I've played this in Command and Conquer in the early 90s. It felt kind of simple in a way, and not in a good way. The aesthetics felt very okay. I've seen this before. I've been here before. I played a skirmish game, 1v1 on a small map, and I still spent most of my time I spent running around trying to control nodes, and then build on the resources on those nodes, and then go to the next node, and then build on those nodes, and then go to the next one. And there's something like 50 nodes on a small map for 1v1, and you're spending most of your time just running around capturing nodes. And then there's a big confrontation with the enemy. You send your big army to the enemy army, they pew pew each other, and then the bigger army wins, and then that's kind of the end of the game.
I guess, Tim, you are spoiled by Beyond a Reason, because it has one of the most best UI in terms of quality of life features I know. So when you get back to this game, I guess the old UI design slapped you in the face. That's what happened.
Oh, the UI was also really bad, because you had to every node that you conquer, you then have to select, and then you have to select where you want to build on your resources. It's very tedious. It's just tedious, expanding your empire and gathering more resources. And then they also have the supply mechanic, and you have, at the beginning of the game, you have a lot of supply. You have like 30 supplies, so you don't have to worry about it at all. And then like suddenly you've built your army, and then you have to build a lot of supply buildings. And I was thinking about this a little bit, and it's a bit traditional in RTS games to have like houses so that you can increase your population size and so on. And I was thinking about it in this game, in Ashes of Singularity 2, and I was thinking, what is the purpose of this? What fun does it serve to have this? It's just an additional mechanic that doesn't really do much. You just have to, oh, I'm nearing the supply limit. Okay, I build an extra house. Oh, now again, I'm nearing the supply limit. I have to build an extra house. And it doesn't really do anything. There's no strategic decision behind it. Doesn't add anything interesting. It's not a fun thing to do. And I was thinking, like, why? Well, why am I doing this? Why why am I putting effort into that? So yeah.
Yeah, when I'm not an RTS expert, but when I think of other RTS games, usually this choice comes down to when like you don't have enough time to do everything. So building this house or storage or stuff like that basically takes your precious time of your workers. So you need to allocate some time of this to building, some time of this to that. So maybe the balance is wrong at this point. I don't know.
I don't know. With some RTS traditions, I feel like, well, Warcraft 1 did this in, I think it's 1994. That's how all of these other RTSs have been doing it since. So, okay, I guess we're also doing this now.
I wanted to play this game too, and but I figured out one of you will play it. So I have a question. Does it look good? Because on the trailers it looks really well.
Yeah, it looks good. The units do feel okay, like when the units fire and so on, that looks nice. Like the projectiles and so on, that looks nice. The map looks pretty decent. Yeah, like, and in some ways it looks better than Beyond All Reason. The maps and so on look very well detailed and so on. There's a little bit of coolness to the weapons and so on, and we don't see everything yet. I think there's probably still more in development and more factions as well. The sound was not really there. There was no interesting music or anything, but that could come later. I don't know. So that was okay. Not blown away by it, but yeah, the graphics were nice. We talk so much about innovation on this podcast, but still, yeah, bring me something to be excited about. Be me like, oh wow, yes, I'm gonna play this game because this. It can even be a feature, it can be an element, it can be something to get me excited about. Yeah, I do need that. Otherwise, I mean, there's so many other games out there to play, and if there's nothing that excites me, I'm like, well, what am I doing here?
Okay, so I feel like the last time we all got together and talked about Steam NextFest, that episode ended up turning into a very good discussion about what makes a game, right? Because we played so many demos that are the whole point that me and Adam especially kept making was like, man, these games are complete shit because you're not really making a game. It's like a proof of concept. You're making like a pitch, but there's not a hook that keeps you playing. The thing is I feel like this time around, I don't think I was much pickier because I had even less time to play games this time around. But the games I played, I saw the merit in every single one of them being a game. The problem was that I feel like the discussion we need to have this time, and it also takes me back to that Menace episode again, is what makes a demo? Because when we played Menace and we had that conversation on the episode, it wasn't, this is a bad game or this game doesn't have legs. It was, this game has legs and we know what promises they've made that made us excited to play the game. The problem is that we're not playing a demo anymore. This is like a vertical slice they probably made a year ago for an investor or something. You're playing a game where they cut out so many features that would entice you to try out to play the rest of the game. I mean, if you just play RTS games, then playing another RTS game, a pretty looking RTS game, isn't going to excite you. But if you want to play Menace, and the demo is a good RTS game, but also has the shipbuilding mechanic and these RPG elements that your other RTS games don't have, then you have a reason to do this. And so if you're going to compete with something like XCOM, which people don't like the comparison for, you give a demo that makes you feel like you're playing a little bit of XCOM, not just the combat part of XCOM. So when we're coming back to this, right, I don't, maybe you both agree, maybe you disagree. I just feel like the discussion now isn't what do you need to have that makes a game? You know, we don't need to ask Tim, what does it take for a game designer to sit down or a developer to look at their game and decide this is like a gameplay loop. This is what makes you want to come back and play. The real conversation is, how do you make a demo? Because I'm playing games where they don't have a hook, like Atre doesn't have city building. Why would I come back if I could just play Spellforce or Heroes, especially if they already downloaded on my PC, like Spellforces?
Yeah, and something to note for me is that for a lot of game devs, wishlist is a huge thing. Steam wishlist. How many do you have on the wishlist to get funding? Because wishlist, you show that to investors, being like, okay, we will be able to translate this many wishlists into this much sales. So it's like a promise of future reward, basically. And so when you make a demo, oftentimes what you trying to do is get people to wishlist after playing the demo. That's kind of the whole point of it. And I think you had a very good point there, Jack. And I would say, if you're looking to make a demo, give a taste of the game indeed, and cut it right off where you're at a point of like, oh, I would like to play one more level. Oh, I would like to continue with this a little bit more. Like give fun, and then cut it off at just the right time where people want more of that fun, and then they will wishlist it for sure.
I to be honest, I'm old enough to remember when the demos were added to the magazines on the CDs, and I'm saying that, but the point is that usually what the developers did back then was that they basically, for example, usually in the games they were campaign, so they got like 3 missions out of this campaign and put it on a demo disc, and you got this feeling that you are already in the game. You could feel that they were like, the plot was going on. You probably didn't know anything about what's happening in there, but you could feel that basically they cut the working piece of a game. And I agree with you, Jack, because when I played this Steam NextFest games, the issue is often I feel I don't play a game. I play the alpha investor pitch. That's what I'm playing.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between the demos back then and the magazines, because when they were making the demo for those magazines, the full game already existed, and they cut a piece out of that game to give you a little teaser so that you would go to the store and buy the full game. Whereas here, it is an early access. It is we're still developing this game, and we're putting together something that is like resembles a little bit as best we can. Like, and if you look behind the curtain, it's all scaffolding and is like barely holding together because that's what they have at that time.
So my question is, who is it for then? So when you're a player, like all of you are, I feel you would like to play some good, well-prepared chunk of game to get interesting into it. So as again, the God game I played, for example, I felt this is like a well-prepared part I get involved into. And if we get something like this Atre Dominance Wars that Jack played, it feels to me like it's for investor pitching, this demo. It's not for the players to get involved into and to feel they need to play this game. Like that, I don't know.
Yeah, and to add on to what Tim was saying, I think what you're saying about what a demo is now is right. Like, you want to give something to encourage wishlists. So what you should be doing is producing a demo that has everything right up to the point where the player says, I want that next level. But I would also, like, there's another end of that spectrum where I don't mean to be that guy on both of these points I'm about to make, but like internally at my studio, we've discussed it when we're talking about our demo. We talk about whether or not we'd like to do a vertical slice, or if there's some way that we could perpetually support that kind of thing. Those discussions always come up whenever you're thinking about the business of it, because imagine a demo that exists almost like a persistent beta, or by itself is repeatable and encourages you to replay for some reason, either to try out new things because they gave you multiple options that you can only choose one run for each time. You know, you're always going to consider those things, because the idea is you either have a demo you play once that cuts off right before the good part, so you immediately wishlist it so that when it does come out you can play the rest of that, or you have a demo that acts as an individual, like, separate product that you do become satisfied by, but you know, because of how good the demo is, that the full game is just going to have even more of that goodness. It's like getting to play the free version now, and then the paid version later is just going to contain hours more of that complex, awesome content. Another counterpoint too, though, about what we're saying, the difference between demos and the magazines back in the day and now for Steam NextFest is, Tim is absolutely right. At that point, for the magazines, I remember, yes, magazines, yes, demo discs, yes, even early consoles, whenever they first introduced things like the Xbox Live Arcade, where they started putting indie games on consoles, there would be demos that would be released years after these games had come out. There'd be AAA, AA titles that would put their produced demos on the store to encourage people to buy them because they got to try the game a little bit before they could buy the game off the Xbox store. But I think it all serves the same purpose, which is that if you're a game developer, I believe you can only be in one Steam NextFest. And ultimately, if you're going to be releasing your demo on NextFest, I try to be reasonable and only be harshest on the games that have an announced release date or a release date very soon following that NextFest. Because if the demo I play is not representative of the game I think the stores page is showing me, or if I'm playing a demo and not enjoying it for a number of reasons, I'm trying to give that criticism as quickly as possible and efficiently as possible to a developer who has a very soon release. The problem with that is that a majority of these developers are either going to this NextFest that we're talking about today because they're releasing soon, or maybe they're just making the wrong choice and they're doing a Steam NextFest demo before they've even announced a release date or considered one. And both of those are problems because I think they need to serve the same purpose. At this point, if your game is coming out soon, it doesn't need to be 100% finished or polished. But if you were going to release a game on a console and have a dev kit sent to you by the console manufacturer and you were with a publisher, your game would need to be finished months before you could even release it or have a release date announcement. And that's not just because you're operating in AAA or AA. That can be indie, you know? The thing is, right, as business people, as developers, where they're inherently going to need to be business people, I'm not trying to be overbearing. I'm not trying to say I know what's best. I just feel like as a consumer, if you want me to play your game that's coming out in a week or two, and you're choosing this Steam NextFest to show off your game, you either have announced a release date or you're not even planning to release anytime soon. Your demo still has to be some kind of hook or vertical slice that's meaningful of the actual content in your game. It still has to be the same thing as the magazines back in the day, where you're playing like 1 to 3 levels from the campaign with enough of the features that I'm supposed to play when I buy the full game to know what I'm getting into. Because whether or not you're releasing tomorrow or right when the Steam NextFest ends or next year, your game should probably be at a finished enough point by this point. I feel like that should be the case. That should be the decision that you make. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yes, I agree with you totally. And getting into the core of the issue is as you said, it should hook you. And when it comes to the side of the business owner and the consumer, we like to play games. We like to get involved. We like to spend some time on it, feel the gameplay is good, I don't know, the story, whatever. And on the business side, you would like to sell the game. So the game sells if you, as a consumer, get involved into it. And if you get some half-baked Atre Dominance Wars type of gameplay, it's not beneficial for you as a customer, because basically you lose interest into the game, and it's not beneficial for a company because you lose a client. So it's not beneficial at all to release something like this alpha slice of some gameplay features, because it may do you more harm than not. So I don't know if Steam gives the developers some guidelines about the demos. What should be included in there? Maybe some short video for developers, how to prepare the demo for people to get in, basically to people to get to play them. But at this point, when I play, because I haven't spoken about a couple of games I played during this Steam NextFest, and when I see the game, open the game, and I see a button play the game, and I don't know even what to press, and there's some things happening in there, and there's no info, like how the for example, music is gone, sound effects are not there, but I can see that someone put a lot of work into this. I feel there should be some guidelines provided by the platform for the developers to at least try to make it as good as it could be. Because, of course, for some indie developers, it's really hard and expensive to prepare the demo. But again, as Jack, you said, you could be only on one Steam NextFest, so maybe you should push it to the next one. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the demo is not for you at this point. Maybe you should try different type of advertisement. If you cannot put any part of the gameplay that's hooking, I don't know, like, of course, we cannot push developers to make good demos, but on the other hand, like, if we get hundreds of games that are half-baked, that are on a level of itch.io concept games, I don't know if it's a direction we should head into at this point.
I would say oftentimes, indeed, I follow studios, but I mean, you never know what happens behind the scene. Like a studio at the end of the day is a name and a brand, but you don't know always if there's shifts, if there's change in leadership, if there's different design IDs or these kind of things. Like it's hard to keep track of all that, especially nowadays when there's so many, right?
Yeah, but what I meant is that there's such a huge number of demos that I believe that Steam should try to somehow sort them or filter them in better ways to I don't know, maybe advertise the better ones. I don't know how to do it, not to harm anyone, but at this point, when I'm clicking 10 minutes, I'm clicking through AI slop games because I went to all strategy games and there was no button to show. Maybe I don't know. I'm not the Steam. I'm just pointing out that it's an issue at this point.
I think it's on purpose so that people really go into random games, so that there is no like, because if you start filtering too much, then some games just don't get touched at all and don't get any exposure at all, right? Yeah, with that, I guess a lot of bad, some okay, and some decent, promising games for the future. After all, demos and finished products, and maybe a look into what could be in the future. So I'm happy. I think you both had a game that I got interested in now, and after this I'm gonna go play the demo right now, actually, I think. So thank you for that. And thank you all. And any last thoughts before we close this off?
I just found the demo for Port Authority. I thought that game looked quite good. I'm gonna try that after.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Adam. And this is another episode of Critical Moves. You can always find us on criticalmoves.com. We have a forum. We also have a Discord where you can come chat with us, where you can tell us where we're wrong, where you can tell us what we should talk about, and you can express yourself freely. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for coming. And see you next week.